Okay, welcome. I'm Edwin Rutch, Director of the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy, and this is our empathy circles, which with the intention of building a culture of empathy, which means for each person to be heard to their satisfaction, and really want to create a more empathic society, and for everyone to see our common humanity and to foster constructive dialogue. And these empathy circles, we hold these every week, and we're trying to get more people to take part, as well as to have trained facilitators to hold your own empathy circle in your own communities, and hopefully train hundreds of facilitators to do that, as well as would like to take these to Congress so that we can have congressional representatives do empathy circles with each other to bridge the social and political divides. And if you're a viewer watching this on Facebook or YouTube or social media, you can go to empathycircle.com for information on how to take part and how to become a facilitator. And with that, we're gonna have a short introduction. Each person just introduce yourself, your name, where you're located, and maybe your political affiliation, just so we can sort into smaller groups and kind of mix and match people. And then we'll have, in the breakout groups, we'll do the empathic listening process, and then we'll come together for the last 15 minutes in the main group again to debrief. So I guess we'll start with just going around, and I'll model it, is just name, location, and political affiliation. So I'm Edwin Rutch, and I'm in El Cerrito, which is in the San Francisco Bay Area. And politically, I would say I'm on the empathic side. So I'll just call on people. Susan, would you like to go next?
Hi, I'm Susan Campbell. I'm from Sebastopol, California, just north of San Francisco. Hi, Ed. And I lean on the progressive side of the political spectrum.
Okay, Bill?
My name is Bill. I'm a retired special education teacher. I'm on the left, but it's complicated.
Okay, Alex?
Hi, I'm Alex. I live in Virginia. I don't see myself as being like hugely political, but probably on the left, sort of democratic.
Okay, Bob?
I'm Bob Berlin, and I'm in the middle Georgia, and I'm not sure where I would put myself on the political spectrum.
Okay, Carolina?
Hi, my name is Karolina Kubiak. I'm calling from Poland. Gdańsk, it's a city north of Poland, Central Europe. Politically, I'm radical left with Gandhian methods, Gandhian means.
Okay, thank you. Ed?
So my name's Ed Halloran. I'm in Houston, Texas.
With Gandhian methods, Gandhian means.
I am, let's see, well, somewhere around moderate or progressive. I'm not sure how the terms are defined. I have no idea what an empathic vote or party would be. So kind of probably developing that view. I'm fiscally conservative, socially responsible, restorative justice. I guess that's as far as I can go right now.
Okay, thank you. Anna?
Hi, I'm Anna. I'm calling in from Santa Rosa, California. And I missed the question. I'm guessing it's
name, location, and just where you sit politically.
Okay. Yeah, I would consider myself pretty conservative.
Okay. Lori?
Is that me?
Yes.
So I'm Lonnie. My legal name is Lori.
Mhm.
Sometimes it comes up as my legal name,
Mhm.
but I go by Lonnie. I'm from Sebastopol, California, and I'm progressive.
Okay, great. Then, Susan, do you feel comfortable explaining how the empathy circle works, or should I do that?
I'll give it a try. Ed.
Okay, great. Then I can kind of sort people while you're doing that.
All righty. So we're going to discuss the topic pro-choice, pro-life, pro-empathy. And it's my understanding that whatever comes to you to speak about having to do with that generic topic, and perhaps if you want to, you can define it a little more for yourself, but each of us will have 3 to 5 minutes to have a turn. It'll be 5 minutes. Okay, we'll have a 5-minute turn to speak about our own views and our own feelings, and particularly our own experiences, whatever they may be, around this topic. And so there'll be the role of the speaker and then the reflector. So one person will speak for 5 minutes. We also need to get a timer person here who will let us know when the 5 minutes is up. So we'll assign that role in a minute. But there's the speaker who speaks for 5 minutes, and as soon as you become the speaker, you pick who your reflector is going to be. And the reflector active listens in the Carl Rogers sense. He's a therapist that used to repeat back to the client not only what he heard the other person saying, but also the feelings, whatever the feelings and the values, the needs that you might intuit. And then you say whatever you actually heard and what you intuit about what the other person's feelings are. And then you ask, did I get that? And then you go back and forth. Hopefully the speaker won't speak solidly for 5 minutes. What you want to do is you've got 5 minutes, but your reflector can't listen to a whole 5 minutes. So you speak for, probably under a minute, like just a few sentences. And then you give your reflector the chance to let them know what they heard. And when you feel fully heard that piece, you say, I feel fully heard. And you speak a little more about whatever your views are. And then your reflector reflects that back. And that goes on for 5 minutes. And each time after you pause, so like as a speaker, please be kind to your reflector. And also, I guess the reflector can also say, hey, can I see if I got that? Is that okay, Ed, if the reflector...
Yeah, you can say, oh, can you pause for a second so I can reflect back what I'm hearing?
Can we pause here so I can reflect back? Because sometimes the reflector is getting flooded with information. So there's no exact rule, how many sentences, but you get the idea there.
Yeah, so the intention is for each person to be heard to their satisfaction, the speaker. And I'll just maybe follow up here just quickly. So you're just reflecting back the essence of what it is you're hearing. You can give back the words, you can give back a paraphrase or a summary, and it'll also be modeled, and hopefully everyone had a chance to look at it. So yeah, is there more? Sorry.
There's one last thing, which is as the reflector, be careful of your tendency to want to evaluate and say, I agree with that, or I don't agree with that, or but what about, because sometimes something really stimulates you that the speaker has said. But the reflector's role is simply to tune into the speaker. That's what empathy is, like tune into the speaker, listen to the words and hopefully the feelings, if you can get any of that, and mirror that back with your own words until the speaker feels fully heard.
Yeah, oh, thank you for that. And so we're going to go into 2 breakout rooms. I'll facilitate one, which just means holding the process, and Susan will facilitate the other. And so we're ready to move into those rooms, and you can ask the questions there. So, okay. Hopefully this will work. Everybody should be. All parts of enjoy breakout room. There we go. Okay, great. Here we go. Okay, so welcome. And I'll be the timekeeper, and it'll be 5-minute turns to speak. Our topic is pro-choice, pro-life, pro-empathy. So you can say anything that you would like on the topic or anything that is alive for you. You select the person you're going to speak to, and then that person will reflect what you have to say. And then once you feel fully heard, you just say, I feel fully heard, or I'll keep time here for 5 minutes. And then it'll become the listener's turn to select someone else. And to model it, would someone like to speak to me, just who would like to get started, speak to me, and I'll sort of model the empathic listening. So go ahead, anybody jump in.
What I'm hearing you say is that.
Okay, no, do you want to, are you ready to speak, Bob? Do you want to?
Well, I can. I hadn't thought about that. In other words, start it?
Yeah, and you speak to me and I'll model how the process goes.
Well, I guess my first experience with abortion was in a position of leadership. I was I was a state representative in the Georgia House of Representatives. Just during the years of when Roe v. Wade was decided by the U.S. Supreme Court in '73. And there was a lot of activity, and I didn't know much about it at all. I mean, I knew what the word was, and I knew what it meant. And then I was faced with both sides of the issue being very dramatic and very graphic about their positions.
Okay, let me reflect, if I can reflect back what I'm hearing. So you were in the Georgia State House? You're
correct.
A member there, and you were there during the time of Roe versus Wade, and you just saw you didn't know much about the topic, and you just saw that when you were there, it was just very contentious.
That was excellent, yes.
Mm-hmm. So is there more? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, so the introduction was very, I'm trying to figure out the word to use. The introduction to the subject was very explosive, literally. There was tremendous passion on both sides of the aisle, if you will. And I don't mean there was that much difference in the parties, because the House had 185 members and only 12 were Republicans. All of the rest were Democrats. But in today's thinking, they would have been all Republicans and few Democrats. That was the makeup of the House at that time. And yet within the majority party, there was a tremendous divided line between the pro and the con of the abortion issue.
So there's a lot of big dividing line between the pro and against abortion issue, and it was Democrats and Republicans, but now it actually would have been more Republican or conservative.
Well, there were, as far as party affiliation, there was about 170 Democrats, but they would be, in today's thinking, they would be Republicans. And the small minority would have been, they were Republicans, but they would be considered Democrats today. So there was a tremendous divide between those who believed in it and those who didn't, who believed in what they call pro-life versus pro-choice.
So it's just a really big divide between the pro-choice and pro-life at that time.
Tremendous.
Tremendous.
As it is today, I think.
And it's still today, yeah. Is there more?
Oh, I could go on for hours, but
Oh, you got a minute and 30 seconds.
well, I had some personal thoughts about it. Well, many, and one is that I found those that are the pro-life crowd were very much for the death penalty and for very limited funding for adoptions and things of that sort that certainly would have been addressing the children that would be born by reason of no abortion. So there was some confusion on my part to understand the folks that were for the death penalty and yet for abortion. And then the pro-choice seemed to be a very liberal mindset comparing the thought process then, it would be very conservative considering the abortion versus very liberal, which would be the pro-choice. And I think that still exists today.
Okay, so what I'm hearing there is that you had some kind of confusion or just didn't understand how you could be pro-life and then not support put more money into adoption and also be for the death penalty. So it seemed like kind of a...
Speak at both sides of the mouth.
Okay, so you felt that it was, coming from both sides of the mouth there. So, yeah. So that was 5 minutes. And I'll speak to Carolina. So I don't know, someone that I know that knows the process and can model it. So.
Okay, as always, I have to warn that I don't speak English very well, so I might have some problems with expressing what I want to say, but I will try my best.
Okay, so for me, this is, haven't really talked about this topic so much before, and I did want to bring it into an empathy circle because I think that the empathy circle can handle very contentious topics. So that's one of the reasons yeah.
So what I'm hearing you saying that until now you didn't think much about it and it wasn't kind of main topic for you, but you think that it's a very good topic for empathy circle, as I understand.
Yeah, because it's a contentious topic, and a contentious and an empathy circle creates a structure to hold a contentious topic. It slows the conversation down.
So what I'm hearing you saying that it might be kind of inflammable, very I have problem with this word.
Contentious.
But it might contentious. It might create a dispute and conflict, and you think that empathy circle is a good frame for it, good format of dialogue to deal with such a fragile topic.
Yeah. So I'm thinking of maybe holding a series on this topic because of the contentiousness of it, because there is so much conflict. So this is the first circle on it, and I'm thinking maybe every month or even more often to talk about this topic.
So because of that, you're thinking about making kind of regular meetings on this topic, because it is so important to every one of us, and it might be good idea to continue this topic, not just once, but more times, maybe once a month or something like that.
Yeah, and in terms of my position, I would be pro-choice, just because that's, kind of my background, I guess. So I would be on the pro-choice side of the discussion. But even more so, I'm pro-dialogue and pro-mutual empathy. So that's, kind of my position.
So now you are talking about your point of view. You saying, what I'm hearing you are pro-choice, but as I understand you, maybe you will correct me. As I understand, you understand this pro-choice attitude as a pro-dialogue, pro-empathy dialogue,
Yeah.
pro-empathy point of view.
Well, pro-choice is not necessarily pro-dialogue. It's like the people who are in the pro-choice side are often kind of anti-dialogue. So I would say stepping out of that,
Okay.
I'm pro-empathy,
Okay.
pro-dialogue, and every voice needs to be heard. So,
Okay. So what I'm hearing you saying that you are pro-choice, but as you understand, people with whom you share this point of view not always are pro-dialogue, but
right.
you are actually pro-dialogue.
Yeah, I feel fully heard. Thank you.
Thank you. So maybe I wish to add. Can you reflect me?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Oh, did you say Ed? Sorry.
Ed or Anna?
Now I have a problem. Well, maybe I choose Ed, so Ed, so not only women will talk to each other, but we kind of mix sex in our dialogue. So maybe I choose Ed.
Okay. Well, I'm pro-choice, so you can have whatever you want.
Okay. So first thing I would like to say is that I don't like this expression pro-choice, pro-life. Here in Poland, we sometimes use term anti-choice. I actually believe that both sides are pro-life. So it's kind of, I don't like it, okay? I would prefer to use something different as an expression to describe view of both sides. I believe both sides are pro-life, just they understand different way this pro-life attitude.
So I'm hearing that you don't like the way that the terminology that's being used in the question, and that I'm imagining that there's some sense that the language itself contributes to the charge in the dialogue. I heard that in, is that right?
Yes, I can say that I feel kind of uncomfortable with naming people who are pro-choice like they're anti-life.
Yeah,
I don't accept that.
Yeah, and I heard that you feel like both sides are really kind of
pro-life.
Pro-life. What I didn't hear was you made a reference to a distinction that you use in Poland, and I'm not sure what that. I'm not sure I heard that correctly.
Well, we sometimes say anti-choice. There is
Anti-choice.
pro-choice and anti-choice.
Okay.
To kind of fight with this term pro-life.
Yeah. So fighting with the terms makes it anti-choice, whichever way you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then,
but I believe it's better to call both sides pro-life. It's more kind of more polite.
You'd like.
Yeah. Okay. And I hope there will be 2 rounds at least. So first, I would like to say that I see the dispute between one and another and the other side as kind of ideological. And I believe this dispute is kind of way to escape from the truth and the responsibility. Actually, what I see as the truth and responsibility. And both sides, one is mostly religious, calling for religious morality, God's law, and such argumentation. And the other side calls for scientific proof, argumentation, and so on. And I believe those discussions actually Well, I stopped there. I will stop there and let you reflect.
Okay, sure. So what I heard you say was that you believe that the dialogue, the way that it's set up, is largely ideological and doesn't really address the solutions, which would require, or a reasonable solution, which would require responsibility, taking responsibility for the position that people have.
Well, actually,
Go ahead, please.
Actually, I'm not talking much about solution. I just think that both sides try to escape from responsibility we
Both
have to
sides trying to
take.
escape responsibility by the way that their arguments are set up. One being for all scientific and one being more religious.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's like an irreconcilable conflict.
But yeah, but both sides are trying to kind of okay, we have argumentation that tells us what to do, and from this very point we don't have to take responsibility because this argumentation tells us what to think. But the truth is, okay, I'm wrapping up. The truth is that technological development of life support changed the situation, the cultural situation. 150 years ago, nature kind of resolved a lot of our problems. Kind of responsibility was in nature. I see 5 minutes. Okay. Now, when we developed life support, this responsibility of choice is on us. That's the problem. Okay. We face, and we actually are not prepared for it. So we look for excuse in this.
Okay. So let me ask you to stop there. And that, so what I'm hearing is that the positions of the ideologies allow people to avoid responsibility, and that whereas the state of science in terms of being able to extend life or support life wasn't as robust as it is now. People were able to, people died off, and so it didn't create as much problems. But as we become more effective at extending life and at both for children and others, for all people, that it becomes a challenge because the natural selection process doesn't work the way that it used to. And so people need to take responsibility for the consequences of the position after the child is born.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything else?
No, it's your turn now, Ed. That was what she had her 5
I feel
minutes.
hurt. Thank you.
Good. Let's see. Okay, so Anna, I guess. Anna hasn't gone. Okay. My view of this question is that it's that's kind of a ruse, the way that it's set up. I think that the behavior of the pro-life champions, and particularly with regard to their absence of any sense of responsibility for a child after it's born, and their major complaint that that these are all or that these are largely people with illegitimate children wanting abortions. I think that it's my suspicion is that the adoption lobby, which is the adoption industry in the United States, is a $15 billion a year industry. And that I think the adoption lobby has turned this into a religious question so that they can elicit a lot of support, deny women a choice, and harvest a crop of babies to sell, principally, under the ruse of some spirituality.
Okay, so let me see if I'm hearing you correctly. So kind of the basis of the pro-life argument, so to say, could be really a front for the adoption industry, so to speak. And they've kind of adapted this pro-life position as something to advance this, you know, adoption industry, if you want to call it that. Am I understanding you correctly?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I think it's a, I think it's a ruse, a disguise, and I think that that it also enslaves women in particular in ways that you know that deny them a civil right to choice about what happens with their body, and it's, you know, as a matter of consent. When I was in my 20s, some 50 years ago, I had a friend who was raped. She was an artist, and she had an abortion. It was an illegal abortion. And when I found her, she had been laying in her bathtub bleeding for about 12 hours. And it made a profound impact on me. She lived. I was able to get her to a hospital. It made a powerful impact on me. Yeah.
Okay, so you had a profound experience when your friend really tragically was raped and was a victim of this crime, and she sought out abortion before it was legal, so it was an illegal abortion, and you found her in her bathroom, and you were able to get her to a hospital and get her the care she needed, and luckily she was saved. And that would have a profound impact, I'm sure, on anyone, and it definitely sounds like it did on you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I decided then that you know, that women needed to have a choice. I mean, that was not. Yeah, I mean, she didn't have a choice in the getting pregnant matter, so. You know, I don't think it was fair for her to be denied choice just all the way around because she was a woman. And, you know, because she, you know, yeah, it's, yeah. Thank you. I feel heard.
Yeah, so from what I'm hearing, you know, you respect women's bodily autonomy, and you don't feel that they should be forced into any situation, and your friend definitely didn't choose that at all. Yet, you know, without abortion, their life is kind of, in a way, directly affected. And yeah, I can see where you're coming from.
Okay, it's your turn now, Anna, to select someone.
So I guess I'll go back to Bob, since that's where we started.
You can choose anyone. It's your choice to.
Okay, I'm fine with speaking to Bob.
Just let everyone know. Good, thanks.
So I'll just be really open. I am pro-life, and I kind of just want to address a lot of the myths that I'm hearing, or maybe some of the shifts in the pro-life movement that have happened in the past 45 years since Roe versus Wade. And I want to start from the point that I come at this with no judgment for women. I have friends who are post-abortive. I work with women who are post-abortive. I talk with people who have had abortions all the time, and I love them deeply. So I just want to start with that. However, I see two victims in an abortion, and I think it's kind of the unspoken part of the equation that gets forgotten a lot. Is that we are talking about two human beings, and we have to talk about the woman, and we have to talk about the baby involved.
You might want to let him just reflect back.
I'll let you go ahead,
you're being very open about, you want to be very open in discussing it, and you want to be very upfront that you're pro-life, and that there are many myths, and many have cropped up since the 45 years since the decree, a judgment, the ruling came down from the Supreme Court. You have no judgment in what you're about to say, but you have some very strong feelings about it. You've had experience with many women who've experienced one way or the other abortion, women of all different backgrounds. Then you focused on the fact that there were two human beings involved in this, both the woman and the child. And in the process of telling that, you seemed very animated and very intense when you got to that point. Your demeanor changed from giving some background to getting into it.
Okay, thank you.
Did I get that accurately?
Yes, yes, you did. Thank you. Yeah, so I just want to address, you know, some of these ideas about pro-lifers that I hear a lot. This is not the first time that I've heard them, but I do want to make sure that it's heard, because I am involved in the pro-life movement actively. I am part of one of the leading pro-life organizations. I am in the Capitol in Sacramento very often. So I feel like I see the inside of the pro-life movement as it is right now. And I do think it's different than it was 45 years ago. And I think it's changed. Maybe originally it was very religiously involved, and to some extent it still is. But I think especially millennials, we're not the religious group that the pro-life movement was 45 years ago. We do use secular scientific arguments based on ultrasounds and biology, and I could get into all of that, but I won't right now. But our technology has advanced a lot in the past 45 years. So we're seeing preemie babies being saved that would have died 10 years ago. And we have this window to the womb that we didn't have 10 years ago, at least the quality that we have now. So I think, I mean, I have very pro-life friends who are atheists, Gnostic, all sorts of different religions. So I think it's a really big generalization, and maybe, you know, not the current pro-life movement to say we're based in ideology and religion. And there is a segment that does apply to, but I would argue that's not who we are anymore. And as the person heavily involved in this, I can say that that doesn't apply to me. I would also, I'll give you a chance to reflect on that, sorry.
Okay, what I have now heard you say is that you have a number of ideas, and you've heard a lot about the issue, and you want to be heard, and you're very involved in the pro-life movement, and shared the fact that you've even gone to Sacramento, I'm assuming, because that's the state capital, and lobbying the various representatives and senators. And a lot has changed in the 45 years since the Supreme Court ruling. And then you made a window to the womb change. You quoted, I'm quoting you saying, which that was really neat. And the millennials are quite different today than the folks way back then, and even as the evolution of our society by age has moved along. And now there's a lot more science and technology involved, which has provided new information for both sides. And you are aware of the different religious and ideological views of it. And you then would argue, and that's when you said, well, maybe I better let you reflect on it. Your passion was raised as you were moving through the process of what you were saying. You seemed to be much more intense, and your words were they became slower and more explicit, more articulated.
Thank you, Bob. So yeah, I'll leave with one last thought because I know I'm going long, but I agree that with what Carolina said about the terminology. I don't think one side or the other is pro-life versus pro-death. I don't think one side or the other is pro-choice versus anti-choice. But we are exploring the question of abortion and whether or not it is okay. And you know, as someone who believes in human rights for all, it begs the question, is the fetus human? And if it is, then I would argue that we have to treat it as a human being. And I just don't think that the pro-choice, the pro-abortion side believes that there's a human being there. And so, of course, if we acknowledge this as a human being, if we take that step and say, yes, we need to treat this as a human being with rights, it does affect everything else: adoption, healthcare for women, providing support not just through pregnancy, but birth and beyond. And again, I would argue that that is what I'm working for. That is exactly what I am working for. That's what the organization that I'm part of is working for. And I would say the majority of pro-lifers are actually working towards that. So I think, I think there's a misconception that pro-lifers aren't consistent with that. But I mean, we've put our money where our mouth is. We have pregnancy care centers that outnumber Planned Parenthood 4-to-1. So we are trying to care for women. We are trying to do everything we can to support those women, not just through the pregnancy, but far beyond that.
All right. One last thought. You agree with Caroline regarding the terminology, and you presented the various terms and your thoughts regarding it. You feel that it's more of a question of exploring really what is abortion, what it does, and of course you suggested doing that by begging the question, is it a fetus? And if so, we need to treat it accordingly, because in your judgment, it's a human being, and we need to treat it as such. Then you went into adoption, because as a result of treating it that way, there are many services that are there and available to the mother and the child, such as health care, treatment and beyond, the adoption, and that's what you all, the group or the side, if you will, is working for. And you all are putting your money where your mouth is, and then made a comparison of the number of the Planned Parenthood versus the 4-to-1 of what you provide for that side versus what's provided for the adoption side. And you were very in the emotional mode. You seem to have moved a little. I'm using the word smoother, but it seemed to be more of your vernacular and more comfortable, because you seem to be much more into that versus, I would argue, kind thing.
Yeah.
Okay, it's your turn, Bob. Also, since it seems to be 4 on the pro-choice and 1 on the pro-life, I was thinking, would everybody agree to give Anna an extra turn, like when we do the rounds? Would that work? Can we get a thumbs up on that, or?
I'm not sure of the question, but
oh, we do. We go around. Everybody gets a turn in a round, right? And then I'm just saying that maybe we could give Anna an extra turn when we do the round, because she's the one on the pro-life, and we have 4 pro-choice here. So we just want to not be too over. Okay.
Did you have me as pro-choice? I guess you're having me as pro-choice.
Pro-choice, is that right? Or
no?
Oh, okay. So it's actually 2. Okay, you're pro-life.
No, that's an assumption.
Okay, then that's good. This is more balanced than I thought.
I'm very confused. I'm more pro-voice.
Okay.
So that's where I am about it.
Okay. So it's your turn anyway. So.
Oh, is it still the 5 minutes?
Still 5 minutes, and you select whoever you want to speak to.
Well, let me go with Anna, since she and I have coupled up at least in this other round. And that might be a good starting point for me, is that I just feel that a dialogue needs to continue and to go on, as Ed, you had said at the very beginning. Dialoguing allows for everybody to, effective dialoguing allows for everybody to share what their thoughts and concerns are. And I'm reminded of a story when a congressman was asked what he thought of alcohol, and he said, if by alcohol you mean the scourge of the earth, that which destroys the human being and society at whole, I'm against it. But if by alcohol you mean all of the tax money that builds hospitals, schools for little children, and take care of the elderly, then I'm for it. So I think there's a balance, at least in the hearing stage. And I like to use, rather than the word argument, I like to say the concerns I'd like to address. And I think if we do that, it becomes less drawing up of sides and more of the reaching out of let me hear what you have to say, and in turn I'd like to share with you what I'd like to say. Anna?
Yeah, so from what I'm hearing, you want to encourage the dialogue, and gave the story of the congressman who saw both sides of the alcohol debate, the effects of it versus the tax benefits, and you like to speak about, you know, this topic as the concerns that you'd like to address, and that sounds like a really effective way of encouraging that conversation and dialogue.
Excellent, excellent. I'm very, at times I get very wrapped up with the way the two sides go at each other versus exploring the potential commonalities that they might have. And certainly I think if they use this empathetic approach, at the very least, it would slow down the talking and maybe enhance the understanding, which I think would be so critical to a discussion of a subject that is extremely important. And we do use words that are very targeted and very landmine-ish. And we get involved not in dealing with the issue, but more with the personalities of the supporters of both positions. And I'm trying to keep this piecemeal.
So from what I'm hearing, both sides get kind of wrapped up in going at each other and using really targeted emotional words, and we end up talking more about the personalities of one side versus the other rather than the core of the debate and the actual issue. Is that right?
You got almost that part that I need to change a little bit, and may have been me, is we get into it being personal versus focusing on the issue. I think it's very appropriate, and I'm moving further, to separate the people from the problem and focus more of our energies on looking at the issue and being softer on the people that are supportive of the various of those issues. In other words, separate the people from the problem.
Okay. So yeah, we tend to focus too much on the personalities, and we make it very personal, whereas we should be separating the people from the problem and focusing on the problem together.
That's correct. Well, that's all I want to say at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, Anna, it's your turn to select someone again.
Okay, I'll go ahead and speak to Ed. Is that okay, Ed?
Yes.
Okay.
Me?
Yep.
Okay.
Great.
All right. Sure.
So I kind of want to address, well, first off, I completely agree that conversation is so important to this. And this is a little tidbit about myself, but a lot of what I do is I go out to campuses like UC Berkeley and big campuses, and I start dialogue about this topic. So I absolutely agree that we actually need to be conversing about it and focusing on the actual issue and not targeting the enemy at all.
So, yeah, so what you want us to know, or what you want me to know, is that you believe that the dialogue is very important, and focusing on the issues is the most important part of your involvement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you.
That you're proactive in that's important to you, and that you're an activist in going to campuses and starting those conversations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. Yes. So I'm trying to think of where to begin. I appreciate the conversation about bodily autonomy, about women's choice and bodily autonomy. And as a woman, I really appreciate that is part of the conversation. However, I don't believe my rights as a woman depend on the oppression of other human beings. And I think that goes for any right that we have, no matter where we are in the world. I don't think our rights should depend on the oppression of other human beings. And I know that the implications of that are serious, that it affects real women in very, very difficult situations. And I think we should be supporting those women and helping them through those really difficult situations, and loving them and supporting them and doing everything we can. But I don't think in any situation we should ever say someone is a victim of violence, or someone is in a really difficult situation, and that justifies creating another victim. And I don't think we say that about any other situation in our world. But when it comes to this topic of abortion, we start to use language that seems to justify that when you start to break it down.
So you believe in bodily autonomy for women, that's important, and at the same time you have this belief that oppression is not something that something that you support either way, and that you see that the pro-choice equation, or pro-choice consideration as oppressive for another human being. Mm-hmm. Is that right? And is there more?
Yes, and I wanted to make it clear also that, you know, there are women who are in very, very difficult situations, and there are women who are in situations they did not ask to be in, who are facing unplanned pregnancies. And I believe we should do everything we can to come alongside them and to support them and to help them. But I don't think that furthering the violence is justified, ever.
Yeah, so that women who find themselves in a condition of unwanted pregnancy need support, and to be offered a supportive, nonviolent solution.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yes, that's exactly it.
Okay.
And so, yeah, with that, we need to approach these women with love and support. But I think it's tragic as a society that what we often approach them with is abortion. And again, it's easy if we say, we'll terminate your pregnancy for you. It's much harder to acknowledge what actually goes on in abortion. And I think we use a lot of phrases in this debate that doesn't address what's actually going on. We use words like a woman's right or bodily autonomy, a woman's choice. But what is that choice? Is there really autonomy? Is there really another human body present? Is the choice really to stop their heartbeat, to end their life? And science tells us that is what is going on. And so I would say that we should use words that actually expose what's going on.
So you think that the dialogue is selectively softens the description of what's actually going on, and that the choice for abortion is presented more readily than or in an unbalanced way for women who might make another decision about having having a baby, and that that you believe that the science that tells us what actually goes on in an abortion should be made more clear in the dialogue around the choice.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Ed. I feel heard.
Okay. How about Ed? Would you reflect for me?
Mm-hmm. Listening.
Okay. I think that part of the dialogue that's used in this argument or conflict or difference of opinions around pro-choice demonizes choice as pro-abortion. I've heard that language used, and it demeans the position of choice and the opportunity of choice, and it supports the oppression of women without regard to the oppression of rape or molestation.
So what I'm hearing is you're saying that the saying that pro-choice is pro-abortion sort of demeans people, and it's it's not seeing the kind of the full spectrum of the experience of someone.
Yeah, and I think and the other thing is that I think it selectively supports oppression of women in terms of rape or molestation, but not in terms of giving them a choice about whether to have the baby or not.
So in a sense, it contributes to the rape. I don't know if I'm quite getting it. Instead of having a choice about it, so it's sort of like it's exacerbating something like rape.
Yeah, I think characterizing pro-choice as pro-abortion or pro-murder is oppressive itself, and I think that some of the science that some of the pro-life movement uses is selective in terms of how they use some of the science that they use in their argument or in making their point to support what they consider a moral decision.
So you're seeing that in the pro-life, some of the approaches or ways that they're doing things is oppressive. It's an oppressive an approach.
Well, not so much that it is. I think it is oppressive. and it supports oppression, the oppression of women in terms of women who've been raped, and it does, or you know, like wants to make a unilateral rule, and it uses words like murder, which is invoking guilt and shame are not scientific methods. When you address these issues and you're speaking to pregnant women who are who may not have the means or the support or the family to raise a child, they're at difficult times in their lives. They, you know, when you invoke guilt and shame, you're not using scientific method.
Okay, so if the pro-life is using guilt and shame to sort of, I guess, sort of coerce women in a certain direction, that's not scientific and it's oppressive.
Yes. 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 Yeah. Thank you. I feel heard.
Okay. Then I'll speak to Carolina.
Okay, I'm listening.
Okay. Well, so there's sort of two kind of levels that I see. One is the dialogue about this topic, you know, how that dialogue happens, and then the topic itself. And so those are sort of two facets of that I see. And in terms of the dialogue part, I'm very grateful that Anna has come, you know, to bring her point of view. I met her at a talk in Berkeley, you know, on a pro-life talk, and I was trying to reach out to the pro-life community to say, come and have these dialogues. So I wanted to kind of share that, and my gratitude that she did show up. Yeah.
So what I'm hearing you saying that you see kind of two facets here. One is the dialogue and the need for dialogue, and the other one is topic itself, and you feel grateful to Anna for being here because you met her on the meeting somewhere in Berkeley. I suppose it was meeting concerning.
It was a pro-life
topic.
lecture. Yeah, it was a pro-life
okay.
lecture.
So, and you both were talking, and she decided to join our meeting. So you appreciate that.
Yeah, very much so. And I hope we can maybe do something, you know, going forward with these empathy circles, maybe even on campus. I'd love to see some dialogues like this on campus. And there's campus groups like Bridge USA that are trying to foster dialogue and across the divides. So, yeah.
So you're thinking about prolonging this cooperation with Anna in kind of organizing empathy tent somewhere in Berkeley on this particular topic with the format of the empathy dialogue. So we can, or you can continue this debate.
Yeah.
Also in real life, in real.
Yeah, and I see the empathy as sort of beyond debate. It's like deeper. It's more of an empathic dialogue. It's a deeper listening sort of. It's not like one side going to win over the other. It's like, hey, let's really understand what's going on at a deeper level for each other.
So, if I understand you correctly, now you referring to the matter of empathy dialogue, that is empathy, which let us not just resolve problem or decide who win. It's not about it. It's about kind, deeper understanding each other, what we really mean.
Yeah.
When we express our thoughts.
And it's what Ed is talking about, the suppression, that the suppression is kind of on both sides. In a dialogue, when people aren't listening to each other, they're kind of mutually suppressing each other. So it's like, how do we have it that each side is really hearing what people are feeling, what their experience is around these issues?
So I'm not sure. I will try to reflect, and you will probably correct me. So you, well, can you repeat that?
Yeah, it's
I understood every word, but
okay.
somehow
Yeah, maybe I can explain it better. Thank you. Is that in an empathic dialogue, we hear what this means for the other person, like their sadness, their grief, their sorrow, their, we're hearing, like, I hear Ed, I mean, I can just feel his, pain about this person, this friend of his just went through this. And I mean, I just feel really sad about it, So it's just to be able to share those deeper feelings that people have around these issues, I think is important.
So what you mean by talking in this format of empathy circle is not just reflecting or hearing somebody's thoughts or ideas, but get deeper to somebody's feelings, emotions, and really feel that, and as if we can, to reflect them to the person.
Yeah, so that's my time, so I feel heard. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, so maybe I choose Anna.
I'm listening.
Okay. Well, I would like to talk a little bit more about this argumentation about fetus and is it human or not human. That's what I feel I perceive as an ideological dialogue, seeking for proof if it's human or not human. When I believe that if two people want a baby and women become pregnant, even it's a second week of pregnancy, they already think about fetus as their child. It doesn't matter if it's a human or not human, they differently think about it. But if it's a case of situation when women get pregnant accidentally, sometimes in horrible situation, it's different. And it's always for women's situation when so I think that, well, for women it's always very particular situation. Probably men can't imagine that. This is the moment when you realize that something grows in you and it changed everything. It's changed everything for life. And this make this decision, what you will do, wherever you want a baby or don't, so difficult, so dramatic. And seeking for any kind of argumentation and that is a human or not human is for me kind of, I can't accept that, because during the history we have situations, for example, I think it's in Indian society, there was during the time of hunger, poor Indian had to decide which child will survive and which child died. And they have to decide that those 4 children will die and this one will be fed, get the food and survive the hunger. It's a tragic decision, and it is quite similar decision sometimes we have to make. If we look at, for example, there are, I think it's Fiji Island, tribes on Fiji Islands have to have in the past. I don't think it's still this custom is
You may want to give her a
practiced
minute
now.
to reflect. It's
Oh,
a
I'm
lot.
sorry. I'm sorry. I forgot. Sorry.
You can also
Oh,
ask for a pause. Say, oh, can you pause so I can reflect? If it,
yes, I forgotten. Sorry, Anna.
Oh, that's okay. So from what I'm hearing, this kind of argument about or difference of opinion about fetus and being human versus non-human isn't really relevant in your mind. And for two people who wants a baby, you know, from day one, from week 2, they think of it as a baby, they treat it as a baby, versus a woman who finds out that she's pregnant unexpectedly and unwantedly. It's very different for her. And so that kind of makes this, from what I'm hearing, that kind of makes this argument of is it human or not irrelevant. And you know, you referenced a tribe where you know, they were starving and they had to choose what children they could feed and what children they couldn't, and the children that they couldn't had to die. And from what I'm hearing, this seems like a similar choice. Abortion would be a similar choice to that. And then you were going on to reference a tribe in Fiji, I believe is what you were starting to mention.
Yeah, well, maybe I'm not thinking about similar, but the heaviness of this decision is the same. Okay, it's not the same as abortion or choosing which child will survive, but the heaviness of this decision is the very same. Okay, you have to choose about somebody's life. It's very tough, you know, moment in life of everybody. I don't believe that women who decide to do abortion, it's easy decision for them. I don't believe that. So what's about the Fiji tribe? I just say in short that they have this custom to sit old people on the trees and shake those trees to check if those old people can still be a member of society and work for the society. It's cruel, it looks cruel, but that's the decision culturally kind of developed in many different societies, and they are about life and death. And in the time of huge technological development, we didn't develop right approach to such a situation, because before that it was more kind of nature decision, and now we have abilities to deal with many situations, but still we kind of want to avoid this responsibility, and we prefer to find the argumentation that will let us focus on this argumentation, and oh well, the science says that or this, and that's it. We don't have to take responsibility and choice dramatically, sometimes very dramatically.
Okay, so from what I'm hearing, you're referencing the heaviness of the decision, the difficulty it is that, you know, no woman is just like, I want an abortion. This is a tough topic that it's very difficult for a woman to make. And then as far as the reference to Fiji, the tribe in Fiji, they would see if the old people in their tribe were strong enough to continue on as members, if they were healthy enough to continue on as members. And that's just the different traditions that, you know, different people around the world have developed to kind of address these heavy questions. But we've advanced technology, and because of it, we don't have the right approach to really address the responsibility or the questions that we are facing now. Am I hearing correctly?
Well, actually, I think we try to escape. We are not prepared to make decision about somebody's life. Maybe there will be a chance to talk more in another round. We will see. But I think we try to escape this responsibility for such a decision.
Okay.
We want the state or the law make such a decision, and the science tell us what to do.
Okay, so we're just kind of turning to the law and to science and saying, we'll let them make the decision instead of actually exploring it and taking responsibility for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. I feel heard. Thank you.
Thank you. So do I go ahead and respond? Okay.
You can speak to anyone about anything that you want.
Okay. Edwin, I'll go ahead and speak to you if that's
Okay.
all right.
Sure.
I would have to say that I appreciate the opportunity to be part of this, first off, and to be hearing all this, and for everyone who's shared their stories, because this is a very personal, very difficult, very heavy topic. And I think Carolina is absolutely correct that no woman goes into this wanting an abortion or taking it lightly. And like I mentioned when I first started, I think women are often victims of abortion, of the violence of abortion. And so addressing what Ed said, I think it's horribly wrong for any pro-lifer to shout murderer or to use words like that. I think it was a problem definitely when this debate was first starting in the 70s. I think it's less of a problem now. I don't know very many organizations that would ever say that a woman is a murderer. I think that's horribly judgmental. And I think our view has really shifted to see the effect of abortion on women and how they have been victimized by abortion in a lot of cases.
Okay, so what I'm hearing there is you appreciate this dialogue that we're having, and you're wanting to address that you also do not support sort of calling women murderers, and maybe that was the movement, the pro-life movement previously, but that it's really shifted, and now the focus is more on what is the effect that abortion has on women, so that more nuanced experiences and effects.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And so as far as the oppression of women, I kind of want to address that, because I actually believe abortion itself to be the oppression of women and their offspring and their little babies. I mean, in most cases, and I know this isn't speaking about the rape case, and I'll get to that in a minute, because that is just as important and we do need to talk about it. But in most cases, we've created a culture that doesn't like to acknowledge that a woman's body is naturally reproductive. We've turned it into something that is to be frowned on. We tell young women, you can't finish school if you're pregnant, or you're too young to be a mother, you can't have this baby. Or a woman's boyfriend leaves her and she's left alone to take care of that child. And of course, those are horrible situations, and I couldn't imagine being in any of them. But this is I would say, a failure of society. And to say that the fetus, the little human, is the one who pays the price, as well as the mother, as well as the young woman who has to walk through into that abortion facility, experience what is a violent procedure that is not natural, that is not healthy for her. In fact, it increases her chance for breast cancer. And the emotional trauma that often comes from that is insane. It's 30 years later, she's still regretting her abortion or thinking about how old her child might have been. So I think it's an oversimplification to say that, you know, that saying we're pro-life is oppressive to women, when really we're concerned about the really lifelong effects of abortion that it has on women.
Well, what I'm hearing there is you're saying that, you know, just biologically, women are meant to reproduce. I guess, I don't know if I quite got that.
I wouldn't say that, but I mean,
okay.
to some extent,
Biologically,
it's a natural part of
okay.
It's a beautiful attribute of a woman.
Okay, it's a beautiful attribute of a woman and a natural, beautiful part of a woman. And that you're seeing that the abortion itself is the oppressive and violent act, and that there's sort of this violence is being perpetrated on women, and I think there was, so that's kind of the essence.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Edwin. So in the case of rape, again, as horrible as this is, I would argue that the abortion brings a rapist's original crime to completion. It brings it full circle. It perpetuates the violence. And you know, we also have to acknowledge that there are living human beings that are products of rape, walking around in our world, going on speaking tours, interacting with other people. And I think it's horrible to say that because of the circumstances in which you were conceived, it is more okay to end your life in the womb than anyone else's. And I think that's very demeaning to those people who are walking around and who are real people.
Okay, so that was 5 minutes, but the so I'm not sure if I'm so the in terms of the that there are people who were so there's a rape is a form of violence, and then to have an abortion after that, you see, is sort of perpetuating that violence. It's continuing the violence. And that there are people who are alive who have been the outcome of a rape, and that they're, you know, positive human beings. So you're seeing that that violence could turn into something sort of positive instead of creating the violence of abortion.
Yes, yeah, and that it affects a real segment of society to say that they're less valuable or less deserving of life because of their circumstance of conception.
Okay, so it's sort of demeaning to say that because of how you were conceived, it sort of demeans you, in kind of creating a spectrum there of different value of who has value and who doesn't.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Thank you, Edwin.
Thanks. Then I'll speak to Bob. You're muted. Still mute. Oh, maybe I can unmute you here. There. Oh, yeah. Okay, there you are.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, here. I got you. Yeah, so, yeah, I was getting a little lost in the arguments. They're starting to get kind of subtle, so I need to be able to reflect them. You know, my brain can't remember some of the arguments. So maybe you could just reflect that part first, little bits.
Oh, you're asking me?
Yeah, to reflect, if you'd be the reflector.
Oh, yes, be glad to.
Okay, so I felt like I wasn't doing a good job of reflection because the arguments were getting a bit subtle. Can you just reflect that?
Oh, yes. Well, you said you got lost in the argument because it appeared that the arguments were getting so subtle.
Yeah, and for me, the sort of the core, I mean, is sort of when is conception? You know, when is a life? When is a person life? You know, is it conception? Is it, you know, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months after, you know, conception? Is it before conception? You know, you could say that is an egg and a sperm. You know, all these things have sort of an arbitrary quality. You know, it's like it's you know, we're drawing a line somewhere, and it's just it's not easy to, you know, where to draw that line. I mean, I can't say, yeah, so maybe just reflect that.
You were saying it that the fact when you got lost, I wasn't you weren't following it as well as you might have because of the fact that you're being lost, and you then moved into part of the way you got lost is because it appeared that the core of the argument seemed to hinge on at least one concept, and that of being conception. When did it occur? 1, 2, 3 months? Was it before conception? You saw that with just what I presented, that was an arbitrary quality, and because of that, then a line was drawn. And that's where
yeah, well, it wasn't so much from the previous argument. It's like a new point I'm making, just about at what point, like, can you say that a cell is life? It's like, you know, it's not easy. And, you know, I've just sort of accepted the Supreme Court, you know, I guess it's first trimester You know, yeah, so I can, yeah, it's just not easy, and you know, you have to just draw a line somewhere, and so that's sort of where I guess where I'm coming from is I just going with what the Supreme Court said, and you just can't say that a cell is life, and even though you can create meaning around that, you can have it's like I think Carolina was mentioning, you can attach these feelings and these emotions to, you know, just the idea of this cell, of this conception. Yeah, so I guess that's sort of how I've been, you know, that's, it's just sort of, there's an arbitrary, it's not arbitrary, it's, you know, you have to draw a line somewhere, and, you know, it's not easy.
You began and ended with you got to draw a line somewhere, and then you referred to, you reviewed to some extent, when does a cell become a life? Is it a life? And then is it life at the first trimester? You then refer to the Supreme Court having drawn a line.
Yeah.
And then you said, what meaning can we take from that creation, not the creation, but from that suggestion or that, and you again went to the cells, and was it, you alluded to, didn't say it, whether it was conception at a particular point.
Yeah, and it's not just life, because, you know, a cell is alive. It has life. You know, a sperm, I mean, there's millions of sperm, you know, there's life there. There's an egg, has life. And it's just saying that conception, it's the sperm and egg coming together, and that's a human, that just doesn't make sense to me. But then where to draw that line of when is someone human, you know, when does someone become human? That's sort of, yeah, tough to make that distinction.
You said it's not just life, and then you referred to the fact that both the cell and the egg were alive, and then the conception is the cell and the egg, and that becomes a human, or that could be one definition of it. And does it make sense? When is the line drawn? And from what you said, I'm gathering that that's where you have a struggle with understanding that or putting that together for you.
Yeah, that where to draw that line. And the Supreme Court decision, first trimester, I can live with that. So I feel heard. Thank you. I feel fully heard. It's your turn to select someone.
Whose turn is it?
Your turn.
Oh, my turn.
Yep, the listener becomes the speaker, and just select someone.
I'm sorry, I'm falling asleep here. I apologize. There was such richness in what.
Who are you speaking to?
The reflector. May I ask Ed if he will be so kind as to reflect for me?
Sure, Bob. I'll reflect for you.
Thank you. The richness of what was said, and you, Ed, specifically as one, the intensity of the emotional experience that you had with your artist friend, and how it appeared very obvious the pain that you still, when reciting it or reflecting upon it, that it still carries a tremendous personal impact emotionally for you. And then Anna, with the passion that you have expressed, and your openness to, as I saw it, to be able to take in other views, and really, I think you really listened to those other views, and I was very impressed by that. Which, of course, then, you know, I teach you how to treat me, so I'm so willing to hear what you have to say by the way I know the way you reflected, paid attention to what I was saying. You're not the only one, but I mean, I just wanted to use those two.
Okay. Yes. So what I heard you say was that that you appreciated by sharing my experience and my willingness to be vulnerable, and that you in that you were able to see and appreciate my intention and passion around the subject, and you were able to see my that point of view, and that you were able to hear that, and that my willingness to both say that and to hear others, that we teach each other how to treat us, and that you were also willing to hear my point of view. You could hear in the passion and the depth of my experience with my friend.
Yes, and I then mentioned about my experience with and of Anna.
And your experience with
Anna.
With Anna.
Her openness to hear all of us.
Yeah. Yeah, and with her.
So with all of that being said, of course, a lot of what's been said by everybody is filled in a lot of information for me, because as I said a moment ago to Ed, the other Ed, that I'm not sure I even have a position. I know what my position was when I voted on the issue for the state, but I don't, so much has changed, and Anna's reference to scientific evolution regarding the subject matter has added to it. The only question I have relative to what Anna has said is that the experience with rape, certainly I could never understand it. I mean, I could probably understand it if I was raped and men are raped, but not carrying evidence of it or experiencing it and it being a constant 24/7 reminder of the horrible invasion of my body. I don't know how that translates for a woman who has experienced a rape. I teach domestic violence too, and hearing the victims, if you will, of that violence is so, it changes lives. Suicides have occurred as a result of some of them. So I don't know how that's placed on the table along with other information and how that's viewed.
Yeah. So with your appreciation of what Anna had said about science, and your experience in like, what your position was in the legislature, but when you voted, but when you're in hearing these different positions and the range of experience that you've had since then, and the fact that you have, in teaching about domestic violence, that you've seen the effects of that kind of violence and the violation of rape, and how you wouldn't be able to understand that probably unless that was something that happened to you, that that the effects of that kind of trauma result in lifelong depression or suicides, and that you given all of that and all of the various considerations in the broader picture of the subject, you're no longer certain what your position might be about that there's so much more for thought, food for thought. That certainly it would be difficult to encompass all of the needs of all of the parties involved with one decision.
That was 5-2.
Is there anything else that I might restate or that you would need to be heard?
No, I did feel heard. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Let's Carolina.
Okay, I'm listening.
Yeah, I'm really grateful and appreciative of the opportunity to participate in this discussion in the way that it's structured, and the sense of personal and social responsibility that all of the participants with various views have brought to it. I'm very.
So let me reflect. Okay, I prefer small amount of to reflect.
Sure.
So you appreciate the I would say the format of this discussion, the way we share our views, the format of Empathy Circle, and the approach, the attitude everybody presents, a kind of social responsibility, and yeah, everybody shows that.
Yeah, thank you, and it's allowed me to connect with the deeper sense of humanity, of shared humanity, that people on the other side of the question from me, with different life experiences and different interpretations of the meaning of those experiences has had, that I can see that there are they have some consideration for others and some compassion rather than just being completely ideological.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you saying that this format of dialogue between all of us let you get to deeper layer of emotions, feelings, and deeper sense of what other people think about this topic, and you appreciate that. It's important to you because you see what the other side of this discussion might feel, think, and you see different personal experiences, life experiences.
Yes, thank you. I feel heard.
Okay, thank you. So have we, do we have time?
Yeah,
Edwin?
for one more.
Can I?
Have 5 more minutes.
Okay.
So you could finish.
So maybe, well, I don't know whom to choose. I feel lost. Who didn't spoke enough? Okay, maybe I choose Anna again. Well, I just want to say that, well, I appreciate what Edwin said about this arbitrary putting line what is life, what is not life, what is human, what is it's you even better express what I thought. It's just I don't believe, because the problem is so ambiguous and there is so many different individual situations, and as I said, some people from the very beginning feel it's a child, other people, and I know women who feel like there is a monster or evil inside them and they feel horrible with that. And this is also the experience. And I believe there are women who, actually I believe the abortion is a horrible interference in women's bodies, but letting grow ill fetus in a body is also a horrible experience. So making decision of letting women or forbidding women to make abortion is kind of horrible suppression to them, oppression to them. It's horrible itself, and kind of forcing women whatever to choose, it's another horrible thing. I stop there.
Okay, so from what I am hearing, you really appreciated Edwin bringing up the arbitrariness of that, drawing that line. When is it human versus when is it not human? And then and just that it's so ambiguous and it's hard to take into account every single woman's individual situation, and how for some pregnancy is a super negative experience versus others it can be super positive, and that you see it as, you know, a horrible thing and oppression to take away abortion and to take away that choice. Did I hear correctly?
Well, I mean that I think that abortion is horrible experience and interference in a body of woman, but sometimes letting the fetus grow is also horrible experience for women. So it's kind of very, very difficult to say what is good, what is bad, what is the best decision. And I believe that what should happen is to create a really safe environment for women to make such decision, including psychological support, including doctors' support, including social workers' support, creating kind of safe environment for thinking about it, trying to understand myself and make this very difficult decision. This is one moment. And the other moment, the second moment, is when the women make this decision, whatever this decision is, again, support them. Because whatever they decide to give birth to the child or to make abortion, it's always a kind of traumatic experience. And they still need a support. They still need a situation when they are not judged, because I believe even a woman shouldn't judge another woman. It's every situation is impossible to compare with the other one. So it's very important to create safe environment for women, economically, socially, but it doesn't exist. Okay, I'm sorry, I stopped there.
Okay, so I'm hearing that you believe abortion is a horrible experience for a woman, but also giving birth could also be a horrible, or carrying the pregnancy through could also be a horrible experience for a woman. And that we should be creating a safe environment for women with doctors' support, as she's thinking about her decision, giving her full information and supporting her through that.
Yeah.
And then also after she makes that decision, to support her, and she's with no judgment, and creating that safe environment for her.
Yes, and the problem is that I'm referring to the situation in Poland. We don't have such, I see, I'm wrapping up. We don't have such environment for women. We have kind of climate of condemnation and hate campaign against the women. And it's so suppressing, oppressing women. And as long as women are not supported truly, it's kind of horrible thing when you limitate opportunity to make abortion, make a choice. It's horrible.
So I'm hearing that there, where you are, the culture is not supportive of women. It's condemning and kind of hateful for women, and that it's really a horrible thing to be in that kind of culture, and that, you know, where there's no abortion, you're seeing that as a horrible climate to be in, culture to be in.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you.
That was our
Thank you.
time. So we're going to go back into the larger room to debrief. So I'm going to hit the close all rooms, and we're all going to head back there. And then you can actually, yep, return to main session. Okay.
I'm going to excuse myself just for a quick pee
Okay.
break. I'll be back in a minute.
Okay, so welcome back to our larger group, and I'm going to stop the recording and then start it again, because we're going to have a sort of a short